All right. Welcome everybody to today's webinar about building recurring revenue. This is a Q&A presented by GoDaddy Pro. My name is Marcus Burnette. I'll be your host today. I'm part of the WooCommerce team here at GoDaddy, and like I've mentioned before already, we'll be talking about recurring revenue. Just so you know, we are recording this, and it will be available after we're done here. Usually post within about a day or so. Yeah, it'll be at the event page that you registered, and we'll send out an email and all of that. So you'll have plenty of ways to get back to that link. It'll also be posted on our GoDaddy Pro YouTube page and all of that. We're gonna start with some questions that have been sent in ahead of time. But as you have any questions during the session, feel free to post them in the chat. There's a Q&A tab. If you look in the chat, inside the chat tab, there's a Q&A tab, sub-tab. Feel free to go ahead and throw your questions in there. We may answer some along the way, or we may hold them off until the end, depending on what they're about. So feel free to go ahead and put those in there so that we have those to look at a bit later. But before we get started, I'm not here by myself. We have a guest joining us today, Bet Hannon, who is the CEO of Bet Hannon Business Websites. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit more about yourself, Bet?
Yeah. So I run a web development agency. We've been since 2008. We started out entirely remote. So all of the remote working is not new to us. And I kind of stumbled into freelancing initially. My first career was in nonprofit management, and I did increasingly toward the end of that career, I was doing more techie geeky things for the organizations I served, building them drag and drop websites and doing early email newsletters and that sort of stuff. And right at the beginning of 2008, sort of really before on the first wave of that financial crisis in the US, my position was eliminated. And so my family needed to stay in Fresno, California, and I kind of stumbled into freelancing for people. It had never occurred to me that people would pay you to do that stuff when you weren't on staff. And I started doing things, got introduced to WordPress, started doing a lot more WordPress development, and kind of became self-taught as a developer. And gradually added folks to the team. And one of the things that we started working on very early on was thinking about recurring revenue. So that's part of why I'm here today.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much. We're just gonna, I think, roll right into some of these questions here, and I'll let you answer them. So the first one I have up here is, why is building a recurring revenue stream so important? Do you want to talk to us a little bit about why you would even want to add recurring revenue streams in the first place?
Yeah, and it's not something that I necessarily would have thought of, but part of my learning when I was doing that self-taught developer thing was a lot of webinars and pieces from iThemes they were really into these webinars and teaching things very early on. And they would do not only technical things, but things around organizing your business, kind of like this one. And so about how to run your business. And they mentioned in some workshops and then kind of gave specific ones on recurring revenue. And it really is about part of whether you're freelancing or whether you're an agency, it's kind of a roller coaster of income. You'll get some projects, maybe multiple projects, and you'll get those done. And typically then there'll be some feast and famine, right? You're going up and down. And so one of the things that recurring revenue does is help you smooth that out. I remember Benjamin Bradley used to talk about it's mailbox money, the money that's just going to keep coming in no matter what. And you want to have some level of a base of that helps to deal with the fluctuations that can come with projects.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's super important to have that go.
Absolutely. Thank you. And before we go any further, I do see that Christina did join us. So it looks like we're not too far in. So I'm going to go ahead and get her set up here. She can introduce herself as well and answer the same question. Let's see. There, Christina. Let's see.
Better late than never, she says in the chat.
Yeah. But never late is better. Well,
Yeah.
we're all late sometimes. It happens. Let's see if we can get her video and audio started here. Sorry, everyone, for waiting.
That's all right.
I do have, I guess, while we're, looks like she dropped back out for a moment. So I do see that we have a question in the chat from Adam. If you want to take a look at that while we wait for a moment. What are your thoughts on subcontracting work for additional services like SEO, social, and that sort of thing?
Well, we definitely do some of that. So for instance, our team doesn't do, we don't do SEO. So when folks need, we do a base level of SEO, but when folks really want to dive into SEO, we just don't have the bandwidth to take that on. And so we can subcontract out work to do that. Typically we're not doing that with recurring revenue though. We also have like some developers who specialize in API, building out API connections and those kinds of things that are sort of need some specialization, but we typically don't do those on recurring revenue, or haven't. I guess we could, but we haven't.
Yeah, which kind of you went ahead and answered the next question that I had, which is what kinds of recurring streams do you currently offer? If you want to talk a little bit more about that.
Yep. So the very earliest thing that we started offering was what we called managed hosting. And it was more than just managing the server. It was, I would build out a WordPress website for folks. I would train them and I would say, so it's super important that you keep things updated and you make sure that the backups are happening. And they would call me back in 8 months later or 10 months later or whatever. And all of that had fallen by the wayside. And so partly it was a way to kind of say, look, you pay us, we'll keep things up to date. Initially, it was just kind of an administrative maintenance kind of care package. And then they would pay us on top of that any labor that they took. But, because I came out of the nonprofit land, initially most of my clients were nonprofits and a lot of small nonprofits, people that I had known, had connections with before. And so I knew they didn't have a ton of money. So I was looking at ways that, I was giving them value, but not so much value. It was a way for them to control their costs. So we had a base level of that administrative maintenance, and then they had issues with hosting. And so we started doing that administrative maintenance plus some hosting, because we could put, 3 or 4 or 10 sites in a small hosting package, and where they would pay and we could charge them more, right? And so we could deal with the hosting pieces that they didn't want to deal with. They're paying to make that go away. But we could also stretch that resource and gain some additional revenue from that. So we started doing that sort of managed hosting plus maintenance package very early. In the early days, it was even before, this was 2009. It was really before tools like Manage WP or Infinite WordPress or all of those kind of central dashboards were available. And so what I did was I started putting a lot of the smaller ones into multi-sites. So I had multi-sites for nonprofits and a multi-site for small businesses, and it was a lot easier to manage some of the updates and stuff for that. But then they were continuing to pay on that, and so we probably, and actually I've been strategically, we grew that. We now have 5 VPS servers that we have folks on. We manage just over 168 sites, but I'm actually now strategically churning some of them, because in terms of just how much they, how much time and energy they take and how much they're willing to pay. And we could talk about later some of the problems with them, but that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. it's hard to imagine a time before all of those dashboards. I can't believe 2009 is already 12 years ago. That's crazy. Yeah, I liked what you were saying about the taking on that hosting too. While that's an additional thing to keep track of, that also gives you the power to know what the sites are running on, right? When you're doing updates, you're not going to run into PHP issues and that kind of thing, because you're also dealing with the hosting. You know that you're gonna be safe there.
Yeah, and what we ended up doing was, well, partly because in the early days we were not making them super admins to be able to deal with plugins in the multi-site. And actually that limitation turned out to be okay, because then they're not throwing 25 new plugins that are all poorly coded and tanking everything. And so actually, I would say 98% of the time, we only give our clients an editor role, an editor user role with the added we add in theme options control, so they can do menus and widgets, and that's all they really need. They don't get to control the theme. They don't get to control the plugins and all of that. They come back to us for that, and it gives us some ability to say, oh, you want this calendaring thing, but that is really not a great plugin to do that. Here, do this. We'll do this one, and we'll put that in there for you. So it gives us that capacity also to sort of help them make better decisions. And most of our clients do not see that as a limitation. They think of it as like the bumpers in the bowling alley that are keeping them on track. It's like preventing them from making huge errors. And most of the time they're just focused on content anyway. They're not really too worried about it. Once in a while, we'll get a client there'll be a staff change at a client, and then they're like, I need to be a WordPress admin. And I'm like, well, that's great. And then this program is not for you. So let us help you we'll get you to your own hosting, and you can deal with that. But the program, our managed hosting program, is really intended for people that don't have the technical skills, or don't want to take the time and energy, or don't want to be bothered with dealing with the technical parts of the website.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I come from client services land before this as well, so I know exactly what you mean there. Adam also jumped in with another question. You may have sort of answered this, but I don't know if it's still the same process now. So when you're offering hosting for clients, what is the process? Do you use a reseller program, multi-site, cPanel add-on sites, etc.? You mentioned multi-site, but I don't know if that's still
Initially, we were in multi-site, and then that became problematic over time because, the multi-site, right? It was brings its own issues, and it's really it's not the best use case for multi-site. Once we were able to deal with the big thing that pushed us to multi-site was, of course, dealing with all of the updates, right? It gave us a centralized place in just a couple of multi-site installs to deal with all the plugin and theme updates and WordPress updates. But now, we use Infinite WordPress. We've used that for a long time. So it gives us one unified dashboard to deal with all of those sites. It gives us a way to put them into different, we can group all of the sites on this server or that server, and kind of, be able to more carefully deal with them. And so we have them all in single site installs now. We have them on our VPS server, so we're not doing any reselling. They just pay us, and they really, like I said, they don't really want to know the technical details of how the thing is. They don't want cPanel access or anything like that. And actually, we're moving to more cloud-based hosting. We're kind of in a transition over the next 6 to 8 months to move to more cloud-based hosting. So
yeah, definitely. There's a lot of times it's just, I just want to know that the website is working and that it's showing my content to the world. Anything that you have to do behind the scenes to make that the case is good.
I just want to email you when there's something broken and have you somebody else deal with it. So.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Hi, Christina.
Hello. I'm not sure if my mic is working or my mouse is working, but
we can hear you coming in loud and clear.
Be doing what I want it to do. I apologize to everybody for
technology.
That's all right.
late introduction.
Welcome. Yeah, I'll go ahead and introduce you real quick. Christina, is it Gwira?
Yes, you got it right on the first time. Wow.
Christina Gwira, who's the founder of Noya Designs in Toronto. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself and everything you have going on there?
Sure. So at Noya, we mostly work now, and this is something I'm sure we'll talk about as the day goes on, but now we work mostly with medium to large size nonprofit organizations, as well as solopreneurs who have social good baked into their service offerings. So we mostly work with people who are helping make people's lives better. And we've been doing this specific work since 2018, but our organization has been around since 2012. So we're still, learning as we go along. But that's a bit about us. So I actually run this business with my brother and sister. So my brother is the creative director. So he handles all the videography and photography work for our clients. And my sister is the PPC/Facebook ads person on the team. And I kind of oversee those who do the graphic design, web design, and web development. So that's a little bit about me.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Welcome. I will just, let's see, we'll get you up to speed with answering this most important question for the session. Why is building a recurring revenue stream so important?
You know how those like sleazy people who try and sell you their Gumroad books on Twitter, they're like, "Oh, make money in your sleep." This is that. Yeah, this is that, but legit. So that's why it's like super duper important to have some form of monthly recurring revenue stream in your business. Yeah. And for Noya Designs, we're blessed that we're able to do it in multiple different ways. It's not just website maintenance, it's other services as well, which we call like our secret menu. It's something we actually don't advertise to people, but it's something we've recently come into the website maintenance forecast. But yeah, it literally allows you to just make money without expending so much energy when it comes to servicing your clients.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and that ticked off another question about answering what kind of revenue streams you currently offer. So I think we're all caught up together here. I will roll into the next one, which I'll ask you first, Christina. If you could offer someone just considering recurring revenue some advice, what advice would you give them?
This is a word that I recently learned on my journey, and it's called standard operating procedures, also known as SOPs. So even if you are a one-person army or you have like an entire team, I think investing the time, energy, and resources into getting those up to speed, up to scratch, I think that is the best thing you can do as you are building out this new revenue stream for your business.
Yeah, what do you think? But what advice would you give someone considering adding recurring revenue stream?
Yep, I have. It comes in kind of two parts, but they're both about pricing. So when you're going to start doing something for pricing, ask around with other folks about how much they are charging for their, and not just how much, but like who their client base is, because of course you're going to charge, small nonprofits different than you would charge medium or enterprise level clients, right? But in terms of the value you're bringing, so figure out pricing, ask around, get some good advice from other people doing recurring revenue in this space about pricing. Mm-hmm. And the other is, this is the piece that we've, I keep coming back around to, is don't be afraid to come back around and increase that pricing over time. We have some of these legacy clients that we haven't until recently. I mean, they've been on the same plan level for a long time. We increased for new people coming in, and that kind of brought us up. But sometimes, you can you can double the price, especially if it was small to begin with, right? You're going to be able to increase that over time. And so I would say you should be thinking about some modest increase every year or two in terms of what you're charging.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great advice. And I'm not on the panel, but I'm going to interject here too, and that's just editing that, making sure that you're not taking on too many streams at once or spreading yourself too thin. It kind of goes along with the advice that both of you have given, I think, and that is, setting your pricing in the right place, because, if you're doing too many things at too low of a price, you're going to burn yourself out. And the same goes for documentation and SOPs, right? You need to know where you're spending your time, how you're spending your time, and that way you can manage that and know how many things to take on and what things to say no to.
Well, and it's not only having too many low-priced clients, it's also if your packages are really large, but you're depending on that income, and then you're more impacted anytime someone churns, right? There's always going to be some churn. Churn meaning people are stopping their service with you. But
right.
if you've got 3 big packages and that's your main source of income, and one of them goes, that's a problem too, right?
Definitely.
Yep, I've been there. That's no good. That is no good. All right, what are some of the biggest challenges you've come up against when offering recurring revenue services? Bet, we'll start with you this time.
I think the biggest challenge, Christina, but I came out of nonprofit stuff, and so we had a lot of nonprofits. So one of my challenges is getting paid, primarily because the organizations that were a big piece of that early stages for us didn't have a way at that time to pay with credit cards. I mean, it's really only in the last few years that you're getting, even now, some nonprofits will say, I don't know, but we don't have an organizational credit card or debit card. And I'll say, somebody in your organization wants those airline miles. So, to get them to deal with it internally. But even now, we still have a lot of clients paying by check. And that's, and once in a while, even, they just don't pay, even if they're paying on a card. If they're paying, on a one-time and it's not on a recurring transaction thing. So I have gotten to the point where I put in the contract that if your payment is more than 14 days late, I suspend your website. And then I put it in the contract, say, we retain the right to suspend your website, make it non-functional, but not delete your site like other companies might. So it sets that expectation with them about, oh yeah, if I don't pay my bill, like my entire site could go away, right? Other places might make it go away, but I'm going to suspend it. I've only had to do it like 2 or 3 times, but it's just a pain in the butt to do. It's just kind of.
This has been several years ago now. I saw, when I was working with an agency, I saw a website someone else had done, and when I went to the site, it said, if you're the owner of this site, please pay your bill to restore your site. And I was like, wow, that's brutal. But I'm sure it worked. I mean, that's rough. They must have, I don't know what the time frame was there, but they must have skipped
not
the
a
payment
great
and
relationship with the.
No, that agency or designer definitely wanted to be paid. So
I tell you, I am really, I've gotten to where it impacts me, and I am so. It just creates a great feeling when people pay their bills right away, right? Like we just did invoicing this week for the end of the month, and there are some people you can count on to just like pay right away, and that gives me so much joy. I am really conscious now about paying my bills right away, not for whatever it is, right? The person who mows my lawn or whatever it is, I just pay that right away because I know how it can create a good, I don't know, relationship. It can help relationships. So.
Yeah, Cammie said that is harsh.
What's really been the issue has sometimes been clients thinking they don't need it because it's like, oh, we have someone in-house who can do it. And with all of our services, we actually offer training to like a particular point person. And so they're like, well, that person knows how to do it. And what we find happening is that, 1 month goes, 2 months goes, and then 6 months later we come and it's like, this is a completely different website. Why is there blue text on a red background? And that's typically where we go to them. It's like, hey man, like, you invested a lot of money for us to do the site. And, as Adam said, your nephew here, he did a wonderful job, but we can take it on from there. I think that's really been the number one issue. The second one has been, and this was something that happened in the past where, like that was saying, in the nonprofit sector, they simply couldn't afford it. And we were charging very, very low, I personally think, for the website maintenance. And so sometimes they'll be like, you know what, like, we're just not, like, our fund hasn't come in, our grant hasn't come in. Like, I don't know if we can afford this on a monthly recurring basis. So those are the two really pivotal things that were happening, where it's like, number one, people be like, yeah, we have someone in house who can handle it. And number two, sometimes they just could not afford it.
I saw a tweet, I think it was even earlier today, that said, if you think it's expensive hiring a pro, just wait till you hire an amateur.
Yeah.
I always tell people, you can watch YouTube videos and change your own brake pads. That doesn't mean it's a good idea for the safety of yourself and your family and your car to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move to the next one, which says, what are some of the easiest opportunities you've found to generate recurring revenue? Christina, you want to start there?
So I think the easiest one, funny enough, it's the more expensive one. So it's like when they have to pay more on a monthly basis, they tend to like make sure that bill is paid. I would say the second easiest one is actually to introduce the monthly recurring before you're even done the project. So specifically, I'm going to talk specifically about our web design service. So when we're like maybe 2 weeks before launching, we'd be like, hey, just want to let you know, yes, you will get your in-person training after the site is launched. However, there might be days when you're just like too busy to put up a blog post, or like you don't really want to deal with the security and stuff like that. We have this pretty effective, efficient maintenance package. It's monthly recurring. You just put a credit card on file, you forget about it. It's like Netflix, but you would know that your site is totally taken care of. And so what has been the best opportunity for us when it comes to web design is literally that, hey, before we even get that final deposit, just tell them, let's sign you up for a website maintenance to kind of protect the investment you've just made with us.
Yeah. We actually put that in the contract. We have that in the proposal so that it scopes it out, and so that they know it's coming and it's there. And
yeah, Adam asked the question in the Q&A in the chat here. What are some ways you can convince clients to agree to recurring invoicing? So I guess like what's the sales pitch, right? Why would somebody continue to pay you recurring, ongoing? What are the things that you make sure to point out that are the benefits to continuing that relationship ongoing?
Well, it's always going to be something that is needing to be done regularly, right? Whether it's a maintenance piece, whether it's, at one point, we don't have any more of these, but we used to do a weekly email newsletter service where they would send us all of their stuff. We would put it together and post on the website, and then assemble in MailChimp a newsletter that would go out. But that was happening every week. And so, anytime you've got a service or something that needs to be paid attention to with regularity, people appreciate not having to deal with one more thing, right? And so whether that's security or SEO or maintenance stuff. So I think that's the easy sell, is that we can take care of this for you. So whether it's got to be a recurring thing that needs attention, and it's got something that they don't either feel skills or want to pay attention to, pay to make it go away. I mean, a lot of our clients probably could do their own kind of maintenance and stuff. It's sort of like, but just pay to have somebody else pay attention to it.
Yeah, like I totally agree with what that's saying, in the sense that we kind of make it seem like you're going to really struggle with like maintaining your site. So just so you don't feel that pain, and we kind of really put emphasis on the pain in our way, where it's like,
Ah.
like you guys are doing work on the ground. And that's kind of the thing we always let them know, where it's like, you guys are actually doing work on the ground. You are actually helping people. You want to really focus on helping the community, and not, while you're helping the community, focus on like an email newsletter or capturing content and then post it. Like, we will handle that for you. For us, we want to relieve your stress, and we want you to focus on doing that work in the community, whatever that is.
Yeah.
We found that's really been very beneficial, because people really, the reason they invested in their website with us in the first place was to be able to do a better job of helping people. So we just focus on that, where it's like, if you're not thinking about your website, if you're not thinking about your ads, your creative and all of that, you can actually put your manpower behind making the world a better place. As cliche as it sounds, some people in these organizations are actually doing some really cool stuff. So we want to support them in doing it.
Right. And I think for us, in terms of our care plans, we're just telling people, you can focus on your content. You just focus on getting content into your site. You create those posts and pages. It frees you up to just do that part. And which is kind of similar to what you're saying, Christina, but I do like what you're saying about it. It frees you up to really do your work out in the world. I like that a lot. So
Yeah, definitely. Roy, I think I know the answer from both of you here, but Roy said that he's stopped doing websites that don't include an ongoing maintenance agreement afterwards. Do either of you have a mandate for including that? Or is it optional? Why or why not, I guess?
It is optional for us, but I never really have anybody turn it down. I really don't. Maybe that means I'm not charging enough. Now I'm thinking, now that I'm saying that, but
that might be part of it. But also, there's obviously some built trust there, right? I mean, if they're totally happy to continue working with you after you've built the site, then obviously you've done something right.
I think they like the idea that I think people at this point in our, collective lives have a sense that things can go wrong with digital things. Right? They don't want to have, things can go wrong with technology.
Computers are not always reliable.
and they don't want to have the responsibility of dealing with that part, right? Even if it costs. So think ahead about scope for some of these things though, because we haven't even talked about that, like trying to find a way to limit your scope. So when we do our care plans, that covers updates to plugins, themes, and WordPress. It covers backups. It covers security and security monitoring, and it covers regular optimization of the database. But that's it. Pretty much. Occasionally, if there's something big with a problem, we'll include that. But if something goes wrong, if there's a plugin that now has a conflict, that's all billable hourly labor to you. We don't include that in the cost of your monthly thing. And that was part of that early piece of wanting to make it affordable for people. They only pay for what they need. Occasionally, they start to feel like we nickel and dime them for that if their site starts to have a lot of problems. But by and large, they seem to get that. Nope, that just covers this. Your regular fee covers this. This is outside that. And
what about you, Christina?
We've really been toying with the idea of whether we should make it mandatory. We haven't decided on anything as of yet, but we've found that people, once they're in, they really don't want to leave. But it is definitely optional, and we don't make it mandatory. That's the long and short of it. It is optional, but I would say where our service differs a bit from, I would say, the standard service is that we also do help with inputting in content, because a lot of the people that we service, they always have updates. And when they try and get somebody to do the update, it always looks bad. And then now I'm trying to include your website in my proposal and it looks horrible. So it's really, I think the number one reason that we actually started having this service was actually more for my vanity than actually the clients. Because it's like, I just want all of my babies to look good on the internet. Like, you all have to look good. And so we just kind of went from that standpoint. But to make sure that we are like supporting our clients too. Again, it goes back to that initial thing where it's like, we want you to focus on helping people. So if it means that, you've written up a blog post in Word, just send it over to us. Like, we'll have a staff member upload it, put a picture on from Pexels. It's really not that big of a deal to us. But whether we make it mandatory or not, it truly might be something that we start doing in 2022. But for 2021, it's not something that is mandatory now.
So what percentage of your clients would you say right now opt out?
To be fair, typically, like I said, we have two main client bases. So the larger nonprofits, they always take it on. The solopreneurs, for the most part, if it's literally one single person, they opt out because they're like, this is my website, this is my baby. I want to upload the blog post. I want to play around with things. So they are heavily invested in making sure that their website runs and operates as it should. The larger organizations, I'm not even talking like that large, like even companies that have like 3 people, they want those 3 people to be actually working on their business and actually doing the work for their organization. So they'll be like, we don't want to do this. We don't want to touch it. I don't care. I just want the website to be live. So typically when it's a 1-person army, they typically opt out. But if it's more than 1 person, they always go for a package with us.
Yeah. I think one of the things that motivates our clients to sign on with the care package and care and hosting package is that when they do that, we offer them a slight discount to our regular hourly rate. So then we have clients too. We have an email-based ticketing system. They just email us into the ticketing system. We have somebody take care of we just today restored a site that somebody borked today, so those kinds of things where they just submit a ticket and we deal with that, but we give them this slight discount, and they love the idea that they're getting that little discount. And then some of them get addicted to start sending stuff, that they could easily do on their own, but they find it just more convenient. So
yeah,
it looks like you're reading Adam's mind here, so I was gonna go ahead and pluck this one out of the Q&A too. Do either of you include any hourly work within your web care plans, like maintenance for X amount of hours for content changes? And that sounds like, Bet, that you offer a discount there on those that they aren't included in the plan, but they do get a bit of a price reduction for being signed up with you. Christina, is that something that you include with your care plans, is a certain number of hours or so?
It's included. We just find that, again, it's just me being vain.
It's not a number of hours, it's just included, period.
It's literally like most of this, like I said, because we're working with a specific industry, they all kind of want the same things. They all want to make sure they have their blog. They all want to make sure the podcast is uploaded. And so it's not things that I do anymore kind of as a CEO, but it's things that they're repetitive and, for lack of a better term, they're easy. So for us, it's just about making sure that we look good. And so we want them to also be happy with their website. And like, that's good, I remember this one client, I love him with all my heart. I'm even on the board. Like, I love this client. And he was so excited when we redesigned his website. He was so excited that he personally took on managing the site himself. And so you are the founder of a very big organization that's doing a lot of work in the business community, and you are updating your blog posts, you're updating the partner scroller. And so one day, to my shock and horror, I was sending out a proposal to another organization. And I go on his website to check the link, and I see there's this several massive high resolution logos that were literally ripped from the media kit of several banks, uploaded into the slider. And I said, I'm going to lose this project. If they see this slider, I'm done for. And so I quickly picked up the phone and said, hey man, I love what you're doing with the site. It's amazing. Like, you've really taken charge. But I really feel that going forward, we should handle this for you. And that's really when, where I say, it's a vanity thing for us mostly to do this, so that, yes, I know you love the site, and I know you can do it, but let us do it.
So I have a tip for you about how to avoid that.
Yeah.
So So we created a portfolio of projects on our website, mostly with screenshots of the delivered site, as
Yeah.
opposed to sending them to look at the site.
We
And
did
so
learn
then
that.
in proposals, we just send them to the portfolio piece on our own site where we can control what they see.
Yeah. Yeah. So what based off of that, what we ended up doing was, as opposed to like taking down the sandbox, we have like 50 plus sandboxes on our hosting, and it's just like we don't even care. We have the exact replica of the site on the sandbox, and as opposed to literally putting like the URL of the client, we just put click here, and it just takes into the subdomain on our website, because I was just like I'm not. And again, because I'm on the board, I have the credentials. So I was like, hey man, I'm just going to go in and do a little bit of tweaks. But you don't want to do that for all of your clients, right?
Oh,
You
no.
can't do it. Like you just simply can't. And so what I did was I told the team, I'm like, okay, guys, you have a week to resurrect every single sandbox we used to have for all of our clients, because that's what we're now putting into the proposal. And I think there was a question in this chat about charging for the discovery process before presenting a proposal. And yes, we now do that. So before someone, if you are a lead and you come to Noya Designs, before you can even speak to us, we do charge for that service. We just found that you're paying for our time. That's really the long and short of it.
Yep.
Yeah, since you touched on that anyways, Bet, do you have any thoughts on do you charge for the discovery process beforehand?
We haven't, although I'm pitching that more and more. So I'm leaning that way. I'm having a conversation with another agency owner next week to chat more about how they're doing it. So I'm really kind of, I do think Christina's right. You know, it's your time. We don't do a ton. We haven't been doing a ton of scoping up front. Typically, we just build that into the project and we say this amount of time will be spent on discovery. So they're paying for it, but we're kind of doing enough of that up front that we can kind of fairly confidently price the project.
Yeah. So that's something we charge for. And what we've found is that the times even if when a lead comes in and they pay for the discovery call, even if it doesn't close, that's fine. I like to be able to use that time to pour into that person, where it's like they came in for one thing and they might say, price is too much, or that's not really what we're looking for. So that's when I take that half an hour to just pour into that person, give them all the resources, give them all the lead, give them everything, because you paid for it. But I also want you to be highly informed when you go to the next person.
Do you give them like a PDF or a document of stuff at the end that they could take to somebody else and shop that around to?
It depends. So for some people, we have done that. For others, we haven't.
Mm-hmm.
But what we always do is we send them that final email, which will have basically whatever resources we spoke about. So it differs from each person. I'm the person on the team who handles all the discovery calls now. Thank Jesus. And so we send out an email to each person and be like, hey, great talking to you. This is what we spoke about. You can research this on your own time. You can take this to your next firm, what have you.
Yeah.
And the reason we did this is that every single time we did not charge for a discovery call, we were burned. And we are right now going through something that if I know that if this person had paid for the discovery call, we would have never taken them on as a client. And so that unfortunate episode basically made it so that now you want to see my face on Zoom, you're going to pay for it. So, yeah.
It's a great idea. It's a great, because it gives you a chance to really get a better sense of the client, and you can kind of say, you know what, we're not the best fit for you. Let me refer you to my worst enemies. No.
And that's exactly why it's like really important to have that network of partners where it's just like they, like, for example, we recently took off Shopify. We don't offer that anymore. And so we found a team where it's just like everything Shopify related, just go to them. As soon as they put into the discovery form Shopify, we know it's going to be like a 15-minute conversation. Go to this person. They will take care of you very, very well. The same when it comes to branding. We don't do that here. We just do web design and our value-added services on our secret menu. But for you, it's just web design. Go to this person for that. And we found that it's been very beneficial. And again, it's really just want to hone in on web design and website maintenance. And the secret menu, and that's it. That's all we want to do. So
That's awesome. Yeah.
Cool.
Pretending to be on the panel for a moment. When I was in agency work, we ended up doing like a brand audit or website audit that was sort of a paid service up front. And they, someone would come to us, and that would be our process, right? Before we get into building a website, we need to do a brand audit or a website audit. It's a paid piece. We're going to go through like everything: logo, colors, your current website, sort of do an inventory of what you have there. And then at the very end of that, we're going to prescribe what we think would be the next steps. So that would be what you're paying for after the brand audit. And we found that to be really successful. And I think for the first few of them, we actually printed out books. So there was this physical deliverable that we could give them. After that, I think we found it was just easier, especially with more and more being digital and virtual, to have like a PDF to be able to flip through. And that was theirs to keep. That's what they paid for, right? They went through that process. That was kind of our discovery process. We were trying to figure out how we could charge for it without being like, it's a charge for discovery process. We're giving you value. We're doing an audit. We're giving this to you. What you do with it from there is up to you. But if you take that and go somewhere else, nobody at that stage is going to have as much information about your business as we do. Like, we're already positioned in the prime place to continue from where we left off, to start working on a website, to know what your goals are and all of that. That audit came with questionnaires from people in the business, from employees in the business, not necessarily the top level, but folks all throughout the business, and some of their customers at times as well. So it was this really great piece that we could hand them, and then what they did with it was up to them. But it's already positioned us in a place to be the obvious choice for moving forward.
Yeah, Adam's put mywebaudit.com as a great resource for doing that.
Yeah, they are pretty dope, and they allow you to white label as well, I believe.
Yeah,
Pretty good.
Very cool.
I don't know if I even want to look at that right now and think about the amount of time we could have saved if I had known that existed.
It's not bad. We did look at it, but I think there's some things where, like, I remember back when I was coming into the conversation, you spoke about how you don't offer SEO services, and we also don't offer SEO services. And I think sometimes there's some things that website audits are just never something we really want to get into as an external thing. We'd rather do it internally and kind of share that data amongst ourselves. And but I like that software. It's pretty cool.
I will check it out and cry in the corner later, thinking about the number of hours I could have saved. I have just a couple more here. A reminder to everyone watching: if you have any questions and you're here on the events platform with us, please go ahead and leave those questions in the Q&A. We're doing our best to answer them as they come through. But I'm going to go ahead and we can talk about maybe getting paid a little bit. What recommendations can you make to ease the process of just getting paid in general? Bet, you want to start off there?
I think if I were doing it all over again, and for today, I try to get new clients into recurring credit card charges as much as possible, because it's just easy and quick. Now, it's not the end all be all, because if you don't have a system, so typically we do that through a Gravity form that just sets up a subscription. But when you do that, they don't have a way, the customer doesn't have a way to change their card number or to cancel on their own. So they have to contact you and there's pros and cons both ways. But I would set that up earlier. I'm just this week getting going. So, dealing with checks is its own kind of craziness, just not only for recurring, but just in general. And so we're getting going. We have new grandbabies coming in January and April and the Midwest. So last time we did this, I had a nightmare with the postal service because I tried to forward mail and that was like, made me crazy. So this time I'm working, some of my friends who are more remote full-time van life people, right? Who just deal with stuff all the time. One of them told me you can have your clients mail checks to your own bank. So I go down to my bank, which is Bank of America. His bank was a credit union. I was thinking, small bank. Maybe my bank won't do that. I'm on Bank of America. I go and they go, yeah, that's a good idea. We could do that. And I think we could do that, the guy says, and he goes and talks to his manager and comes back and says, oh, we already do that for 3 dozen people. I was like, I just didn't know it. Okay. But we set up a second account so that's the account number that we give to the clients, and that's the deposit only account. And and I'm always moving money out of that, and there's not any risk to really anybody having that account number in terms of security and stuff. So we're kind of getting started on that, where I'm just going to have clients mail checks direct to the bank. We're testing.
Wow, interesting.
Which
Nice.
I like. I'm really
that.
liking that. It's like I don't have to deposit checks anymore. That would be so cool.
Oh, wait, so the bank will deposit the check into your account for you as well?
You mail it to the bank, and the bank opens it up and sees it. They see who it's for. They deposit it directly to your account, and then because you're on email, you get the notification that the check deposited.
I'm gonna see if they do that up here in Canada.
And then of course, he said, is there any worry you're not? And I said, and then I'm still going to see the scans, because anytime you deposit a check, even if it's at the ATM, you can see the picture of the check, right? No, I can always just look and see who it was from if I'm not sure who it was, and I'm like win-win all around. So I'm hopeful. I'm just getting started, but that's my plan. So
interesting.
That would be cool.
That would be definitely amazing. Wow, thank you for that. I learned something from the panel as well. Awesome.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Christina, do you have any recommendations on how you make sure that you get paid?
I would say a bit all over the place, but I'm so grateful that the days of chargebacks are behind us at our company. So we have a bit more faith. We accept things through Stripe and PayPal, because we do have some clients that are in the United States as well as in the UK. So we have like a monthly recurring thing set up on our website through PayPal, and they have PayPal accounts, so it's all great. We also have our CRM that we use, Dubsado. They also have a really cool feature for monthly recurring payments as well. And so they're through our CRM, where they see like all of our contracts and stuff, they can also go and log in and update their credit card and all of that stuff. So, and that goes through Stripe. So we use Stripe and PayPal for credit card stuff. So we have this really cool thing also where we can like request Interact e-transfers through our bank accounts as well. I'm not sure if that's like a Canadian thing. I think it's a Canadian thing, but I'm not sure. We love those because it's like cash. And then for those lovely archaic organizations who still do checks, we take a year's worth of checks post-dated. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
I refuse to do people who are checks monthly. They have to pay annually.
Yeah. It's just like I literally can't. And those are always the organizations too that have like the most signing authorities. Like, why is it that you are paying $99 but need 3 people to sign off on the check? I don't know. I don't know.
That's a lot to manage.
Exactly. Yeah. We work with some of the same people, I think.
Nice. We do have a question from Adam in the Q&A. I think both of you answered this, so I'm going to actually pose this to the attendees in the chat here. What is your preferred payment provider? Stripe, PayPal, or perhaps maybe GoDaddy's new payments offering? I will leave that up to folks in the chat to answer, and we will.
I'm going to respond to one thing. Lawrence
Sure.
asked, isn't the thing where you're mailing the checks to the bank called a lockbox arrangement? So a lockbox, I did not know this until I started investigating, but a lockbox is what more of an enterprise company that's receiving 100 checks a day would use. And they're expensive. They cost like, I don't know, $1,000 a month or more. Right. And in that one, it's like a dedicated PO box. All of your checks are going to that, and the bank is depositing them for you. The arrangement that I set up is not that. This is my bank at no fee to me, which I was astounded at. I thought there might be a fee for doing this, but apparently so far they have not mentioned that. You're just mailing the check directly to my branch bank. It's not to some lockbox PO box somewhere. It's my branch bank, and it's addressed to Manhattan Business Websites, care of Bank of America, Northeast 3rd Street, Bend, and then the bank knows what to do with it when it gets there. So it's not a lockbox.
Awesome. I did not know what a lockbox arrangement was, and now I have more info. Thank you. All right, we are approaching the top of the hour here, so I'm going to go ahead and maybe finish us off with what is the biggest thing that you have learned in offering recurring revenue services? Christina, maybe you can start us off there.
I would say two things. Definitely finding a way to get all of this automated or just like off of making it as easy as possible for people to implement stuff. So whether it's the collection of content, all the different passwords and all of that stuff, making sure we keep super organized. And I think the second thing is standard operating procedures. Like really, that's really something that has just been a guiding, like a lighthouse for us, just making sure that everybody knows what to do at any point in time. And that really hit home for us when everybody in the C-level of the organization caught COVID, because it was really like, okay, management is down, like for real. Y'all kind of have to kind of make sure everybody's cool. And unfortunately, we had to close up shop for 2 months. Like it really didn't, we couldn't do it. And so right after that, it was like, okay, how do we do A, B, C, and D? And how do we make it so that if you go to Bali and you go to Australia and I am just like in Ghana, somebody can come on board and be able to make sure that we get paid, we pay people, service delivered, people are happy, and we still have the pipeline full. So
We call that the hit by the bus factor. We have to factor in the hit by the bus factor.
Yeah. And like, no one saw that coming. Like all the co-founders are sick. Really? Where do they do that at? Yeah. They do it here. So that was really something that we learned from this entire process of implementing this.
Yeah, Bet, do you have any advice or biggest things that you've learned?
The biggest thing I've learned is it just astounds me the number of people who will pay to make things go away.
Yeah.
For somebody that will pay for somebody else to do some of the smallest, relatively easy things, right? So, if you've got some things that you can package up as a service offering, go for it.
Yeah. Well, you say they're easy, but they're not easy for everyone. So.
Well, but also be thinking ahead. I mean, think entrepreneurially about how you can put things together, right? So just today we had members of our team. So Gravity, we do a lot of stuff with Gravity Forms, and Gravity Wiz offers a whole package of plugins to kind of third-party plugins for doing things with Gravity Forms. They came out with a new one today where, when you're putting in your address field, when you're shopping online somewhere, and you get like the first little bit of your address in, and then all of a sudden it fills in. Mm-hmm. We can do that now with a Gravity Form. And I'm like, that would be super cool. Well, and then so the team is talking about, well, would the labor cost for putting that together and the cost of the plugin would be like this. And I'm like, no, we should be doing that as a monthly fee. The client doesn't necessarily need to know that it's a set it and forget it kind of thing, just like some of the maintenance, right? We're and the backups and all of that. Yeah. We could charge it as a monthly fee. So thinking entrepreneurially about ways that you can create new recurring revenue. So.
Yeah.
Awesome. That is great advice. We are at the top of the hour. I'm going to check the Q&As. It looks like we answered all of them sort of as we rolled on here. So I'll go ahead and maybe wrap us up here. Thanks all for hanging out with us today. Be sure to check out past webinars that we've done here on the GoDaddy Pro events section or the GoDaddy Pro YouTube channel. We have a couple of ones coming up next week on Monday, the strategies behind fitness businesses online. That'll be Monday at 1:00 Eastern. And then right back here, same time next Wednesday, is actually building monthly recurring revenue streams. And Joe Howard from WP Buffs and WP MRR will be here to give us a little bit of a presentation talking about building monthly recurring revenue streams as well. Thanks again to Bet and Christina. Thanks for joining us. Sorry we had some technical difficulties there getting started, Christina, but I'm glad you were able to join us.
Went wrong. Like I'm currently looking at a black screen right now. I'm surprised you guys can see me. Like my mouse is decided not to work. And it's just like, we did a test at like 10 a.m. to say. I'm like, I know this stuff works. I'm glad I'm here. And thank you so much to everyone who's showing us love in the chat. We appreciate you. Thank you for
Yes.
finding value in the stuff that has literally been sometimes a thorn in our sides collectively.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you both
Great to
for
be
joining.
here.
And thanks everyone who joined us in the chat. And we will see you next time.
Bye for now, everyone.